Welcome to a quiet place among the stars and shadows, where thoughts drift like clouds and the mind softens into stillness. Tonight, we journey through 100 delicate truths about consciousness, gently unraveling what it means to be aware, to dream, to feel the world from within. Scientists have traced consciousness across 500 million years of evolution, from the flicker of awareness in a jellyfish to the complex inner lives of humans. 100 billion neurons light up the waking brain, each sending signals at over 250 miles per hour, weaving thought from silence. As vast as the cosmos and as intimate as your next breath, consciousness invites us to wonder. If you enjoy these gentle science journeys, I invite you to like and subscribe, or share a favorite fact in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, there's nothing you need to do but rest. Settle in, breathe deeply, and let's begin. Fact 1. Consciousness may be ancient, tracing its roots back more than 500 million years to soft-bodied sea creatures drifting through primordial oceans. Researchers believe that even simple organisms like the comb jelly possess basic forms of sensory integration, a glimmer of awareness sparking in a world without eyes. This suggests that consciousness is not exclusive to humans or mammals, but rather a slow blooming of inner experience, shaped over eons like wind shaping stone. Fact 2. The human brain, weighing just about 3 pounds, contains roughly 86 billion neurons, each forming up to 10,000 connections with its neighbors. These intersections, called synapses, generate complex patterns that give rise to perception, memory, and the mysterious sense of I am. Scale that network, and the number of possible neural configurations exceeds the number of atoms in the observable universe. A quietly staggering truth. Fact 3. During deep sleep, certain regions of the brain fall eerily silent, yet tiny bursts of activity known as sleep spindles continue to ripple across the cortex. These threads of electrical rhythm are thought to help protect sleep and enhance memory, stitching the mind's experiences into the fabric of long-term awareness. Just like drifting sand dunes shaped by a hidden wind, the sleeping brain silently reshapes itself night after night. Fact 4. Scientists have discovered that a split second of conscious awareness takes about 200 milliseconds to register in the human brain. In that brief blink of time, the mind captures light, color, sound, and sensation, weaving it all into a coherent world. It means that what we perceive as now is always slightly behind reality, a constructed echo of the present. Consciousness, then, is like a painter working from memory, constantly adjusting the strokes a moment after the scene has passed. Fact 5. In the womb, human fetuses begin to show signs of sensory awareness as early as the 3rd trimester. Around week 28, their brains respond to sounds from the outside world, especially the rhythm of a mother's voice. Though faint and muffled, these sensory impressions may form the earliest seeds of consciousness, a gentle awakening in the still and floating dark. Wrapped in warm fluid and muted heartbeat, this stage marks the soul's first whisper of being, a prelude to the world beyond. Fact 6. Consciousness flows in and out of focus, like waves lapping against the mind's quiet shore. One striking phenomenon is microsleep, where the brain slips into sleep for mere seconds while the eyes remain open. It often occurs in overtired individuals and reflects the brain's insistence on rest. During these moments, awareness vanishes and returns almost imperceptibly, revealing how delicate our grip on wakefulness truly is. Just 5 seconds of microsleep can blur perception, turning a familiar hallway into something dreamlike, if only for a breath. Fact 7. Some scientists propose that consciousness arises from a delicate balance between order and chaos inside the brain. This theory, known as critical brain dynamics, suggests that the brain hovers near a mathematical tipping point, allowing it to shift seamlessly between stable patterns and spontaneous thoughts. Imagine a murmuration of starlings, each bird aware of its neighbors, creating swirling shapes that are both fluid and coherent. In the same way, the brain's electrical activity dances on the edge of randomness, enabling both clarity and creativity to emerge. Consciousness, seen through this lens, is not fixed, but fluctuating, a living pattern born from ever-changing waves. Fact 8. In dreamless sleep, consciousness does not entirely vanish, but retreats into a quiet potential, like moonlight behind soft clouds. Brain scans during non-REM sleep show low levels of activity, yet a faint hum persists, a background rhythm that never fully silences. Some researchers believe this enduring spark may serve as a safeguard, readying the mind for sudden waking or the return of hidden dreams. Even in its most dormant state, consciousness keeps a candle lit in the shadows, a subtle readiness beneath the hush. Fact 9. The thalamus, a small structure deep within the brain, has often been called the gateway to consciousness. Acting like a central station, it relays sensory information from the outer world to the cortex, where experience becomes aware. Damage to the thalamus can render a person unconscious, even if the rest of the brain remains intact. It is here, in this walnut-sized node, that waking life may be toggled on or off, like a silent switch hidden inside the cathedral of the mind. This quiet organ stands at the intersection of sensation and self, a keeper of our daylit presence. Fact 10. Brainwaves tell a story of consciousness unfolding across frequencies, like a symphony made of electricity. Delta waves, the slowest of all, emerge during deep sleep and radiate at less than 4 cycles per second, gently rocking the brain into rest. Theta waves, dancing between 4 and 8 hertz, are often seen in light sleep and moments of deep creativity. Higher up the scale, alpha waves flow during calm wakefulness, while beta and gamma waves rise during active thought and heightened perception. Together, these rhythms create a layered orchestra, a murmuring signal of awareness that never quite falls silent, even in dreams. The brain, in its quiet hum, sings the unfolding self. Fact 11. Across cultures and centuries, consciousness has been described through metaphors of light, a flame, a glow, or a spark within. In ancient Egypt, the heart was believed to be the seat of the soul, guiding moral judgment in the afterlife. In Eastern traditions, consciousness is often pictured as a flowing river or an expanding sky, with meditation serving as the quiet boat that drifts along its surface. Though science now locates consciousness in patterns of brain activity, the imagery remains. A shining presence behind the eyes, elusive like the morning mist. These metaphors reveal not a contradiction, but a shared longing to touch what cannot be fully grasped, a recognition that awareness is both physiological and poetic, both mechanism and mystery. Fact 12. During moments of awe, such as standing before a vast mountain range or gazing at starlight from a quiet hilltop, the brain shows a distinct pattern of activation. Activity increases in the default mode network, a set of interconnected regions linked to self-reflection and introspection. Paradoxically, this awe can quiet the sense of individual self, expanding one's awareness outward instead. It is in these moments that consciousness shifts from the personal to the profound, dissolving boundaries like frost under morning sun. Neuroscientists suggest that such experiences, though fleeting, may enhance well-being and foster a lasting sense of connectedness to the world beyond the self. Fact 13. Mirror self-recognition is one of the rare behavioral tests used to study consciousness in animals. Few species pass the mirror test. Among them, elephants, dolphins, magpies, and some great apes. When these creatures recognize themselves in a reflection, they often use it to inspect a spot on their body or make subtle adjustments, suggesting an awareness of self distinct from others. This ability hints at a deeper internal model of identity, one that transcends instinct and enters the realm of introspection. In the simple act of looking in a mirror and knowing who is looking back, a quiet marvel unfolds, the mind seeing itself from the outside, wrapped in reflection and wonder. Fact 14. In the fragile theater of conscious experience, time feels like a stream, always flowing forward. But neuroscientists have uncovered that our perception of time is not constant. It expands and contracts depending on attention and emotion. In high-stress situations, milliseconds can stretch into long moments, while hours may vanish unnoticed during states of deep focus or joy. This temporal fluidity is shaped by the brain's internal clock mechanisms, mainly influenced by dopamine levels and the activity of specialized neurons in the basal ganglia. It means that while clocks may tick evenly, the mind flows like water, bending time according to feeling. In this way, consciousness weaves its own rhythm, singing minutes into hours or folding hours into seconds, like lullabies caught in a breeze. Fact 15. Lucid dreaming presents a fascinating borderland between sleep and wakefulness, offering glimpses into conscious control within the unconscious mind. During a lucid dream, the sleeper becomes aware that they are dreaming, and in some cases, can shape the dream's narrative, environment, or even physics. This phenomenon often occurs during rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, when brain activity closely resembles that of waking. Functional MRI scans have shown that lucid dreamers reactivate parts of the prefrontal cortex, the area linked to decision-making and self-awareness. In this twilight playground, consciousness awakens within the dream itself, and the mind paints with colors drawn from memory and imagination. It is a reminder that even within the deepest sleep, awareness can flicker alive, not as a full flame, but as a glowing ember in the dream world's drifting dark. Fact 16. Some theories suggest that consciousness may not be confined to the brain alone, but may instead arise from the loops and echoes that form as the body, brain, and environment interact. Called embodied cognition, this view holds that awareness is shaped by the physical form, the heartbeat that quickens with emotion, the hand that grasps and learns, the breath that deepens thought. In this view, consciousness is not locked behind the skull, but stretches into movement and sensation, weaving selfhood through posture, rhythm, and touch. Like wind shaping the motion of tall grass, the body stirs the mind into being, grounding thought in the feeling of being alive. Fact 17. The phenomenon of blind sight offers a strange glimpse into the layered nature of awareness. In certain individuals who are clinically blind due to damage in their primary visual cortex, a kind of unconscious vision remains. Though they report seeing nothing, these individuals can still navigate around obstacles or guess the location of a light source with surprising accuracy. This suggests that visual information can be processed without entering conscious awareness, moving along pathways that bypass the parts of the brain responsible for constructing our visual experience. Blind sight reveals that consciousness is not always required for perception, and that beneath the surface of seeing lies a hidden world. One the mind may know without ever knowing how. Fact 18. In states of deep meditation, experienced practitioners can consciously enter what is known as pure awareness, a state in which thoughts, emotions, and even the sense of time momentarily dissolve. Neuroimaging studies have revealed reduced activity in the brain's default mode network during these moments, accompanied by enhanced connectivity between attention-related regions. This suggests a form of consciousness untethered from narrative thought, like a still pond untouched by wind. In this mental quiet, awareness becomes spacious and non-reactive, echoing ancient teachings that describe the mind as a mirror, clear, reflective, and free from the movements of the world around it. These inner journeys may not change the world outside, but they offer a glimpse of the serene landscape within, where consciousness rests in silent watchfulness, undisturbed and whole. Fact 19. The boundary between waking consciousness and sleep is bridged by a fleeting state called hypnagogia. It is during this gentle shift that the veil between thought and dream thins, allowing fragments of imagination, memory, and perception to blend into short-lived, dreamlike visions. Artists and inventors have long sought this twilight gap for inspiration. Thomas Edison and Salvador Dali, for example, both dabbled in capturing ideas from its edge. In brain scans, this state reveals a dance between alpha and theta waves, a rhythmic mingling of awareness and surrender. Hypnagogia is a reminder that consciousness does not flick off like a switch, but fades elegantly, tenderly, like dusk slipping into night. Fact 20. Sleepwalking, or somnambulism, is a curious state in which the body moves while the conscious mind sleeps. Most commonly occurring during the deep stages of non-REM sleep, sleepwalking blurs the line between wakefulness and dreams. Individuals may rise, open doors, or even climb stairs without any memory of doing so. Scientists believe that certain brain regions responsible for motor control remain active, while those governing awareness and memory stay at rest. The result is a ghost-like choreography where the body wanders through the world as if awake, yet the mind drifts far away. This phenomenon reminds us that consciousness is not an all-or-nothing state. It can fragment, wander, and return, casting echoes of intention through the silence of sleep. Fact 21. The phenomenon of synesthesia offers a unique glimpse into how consciousness blends and colors sensory experience. In individuals with this trait, stimulation of one sense, such as hearing a word or seeing a number, triggers involuntary sensations in another. like seeing specific colors or tasting particular flavors. Around 4% of the population is estimated to experience some form of synesthesia, with the most common being grapheme color synesthesia, where letters and numbers are perceived as inherently colored. Though its biological underpinnings are still being unraveled, some studies suggest increased cross-wiring between sensory regions of the brain may contribute to the effect. Synesthesia suggests that consciousness is not only a filter of perception, but a painter of inner worlds where senses blur and blend in ways both personal and dreamlike. In these rare minds, the world itself sings in hues and whispers, with taste, offering a glimpse into the creative potential of a more fluid awareness. Fact 22. When anesthesia is administered during surgery, consciousness does not vanish all at once, but appears to dissolve in stages, like fog rolling in over a landscape. Anesthetics work by disrupting neural pathways, particularly those connecting the thalamus and the cortex, which are crucial for maintaining alert awareness. Interestingly, while memory and language functions fade quickly, deeper subconscious activity may persist for longer. Researchers have found that in some cases, the brain still responds faintly to external stimuli, even when the patient is unaware. This layered descent into unconsciousness reveals that awareness is not a single switch, but a fading constellation where each point of light blinks out in its own time, until only the silence of unknowing remains. Fact 23. Phantom limb sensations offer a haunting insight into how consciousness maps the body from within. When a limb is lost, many individuals report feeling its continued presence, itching, warmth, pain, or movement in the space the body no longer occupies. Neurologists believe this occurs because the brain's somatosensory cortex maintains a map of the body, and when input from a limb ceases, the map does not instantly erase. Instead, it lingers like a ghost of sensation, still knocking at the door of awareness. In some cases, mirror therapy has helped alleviate these sensations, suggesting that the mind can be tricked into rewriting its internal geography. Phantom limbs show that consciousness does not simply receive the world. It constructs it. And those constructions, once shaped, can echo long after their source is gone. Fact 24. Consciousness and memory often walk hand in hand, yet amnesia reminds us that one can persist without the other. In cases of anterograde amnesia, individuals lose the ability to form new memories while still retaining their sense of self and the ability to engage with the world. A person may speak, recognize emotions, and make decisions, all while time slips silently past like water through a sieve. The hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped part of the brain, plays a central role in encoding new experiences. When it is damaged, the continuity of memory collapses, but the scaffolding of awareness endures. In this paradox, consciousness reveals its resilience, a presence still awake, even as the past becomes a blank page and the future arrives unwritten. Fact 25. The act of imagining an action and physically performing it activates remarkably similar neural patterns within the brain. Known as motor imagery, this phenomenon suggests that the boundary between thought and movement is far thinner than we might assume. Athletes and dancers use this mental rehearsal to refine their performance, visualizing motion to strengthen neural circuits, even in stillness. Brain scans have shown that during such practices, Regions like the premotor cortex and supplementary motor area light up, painting vivid rehearsals without a single muscle moved. In the quiet theater of the mind, action is contemplated and rehearsed, as though thought itself were a whispering tide shaping the shoreline of ability. This blending of intention and imagination hints at how consciousness molds not only perception, but potential, sculpting future motion in the gentle hush of inner space. Fact 26. The edges of consciousness blur during states of flow, those immersive moments when attention is so focused that time, self, and surroundings seem to vanish. Musicians lost in composition, painters forgetting hunger, and climbers ascending rock faces in serene focus all describe this seamless immersion. Neuroscientific studies show reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex during flow, particularly in regions tied to self-monitoring and doubt. At the same time, areas related to skill and action illuminate like starlight on dark water. In flow, consciousness sharpens not by adding more thought, but by quieting the noise that separates us from what we do. It is a dance of pure presence, where the mind becomes the movement and the self melts softly into the act unfolding. Fact 27. The way consciousness reflects on itself is perhaps most vivid in metacognition, the awareness of one's own thoughts. It is the sentinel of the mind that not only experiences, but notices the experience, shaping decisions with a quiet echo of self-monitoring. Studies using brain imaging have shown that areas like the anterior prefrontal cortex become active when individuals assess their own thinking, recognize uncertainty, or reflect upon choices. Metacognition allows us to revise memories, question assumptions, and steer behavior with insight drawn from within. Like a lantern in an inner cave, it illuminates the corridors where thought turns inward, offering a glimpse of the mind thinking about thought. A spiral of awareness curling softly into itself, infinite and still. Fact 28. Near-death experiences, often described by those who have come close to dying, offer haunting insight into the fabric of conscious perception. Many report a feeling of floating above the body, moving through a tunnel toward light, or encountering serene landscapes beyond time. Though some interpret these as spiritual events, neuroscientists have explored physiological explanations, such as surges of brain activity during extreme oxygen loss or the release of endorphins and neurotransmitters in crisis. EEG recordings in certain cases have shown a brief, intense burst of neural coherence just after heart activity ceases, as if awareness holds on for one last flicker. These experiences, whether metaphor or memory, evoke the fragile threshold between presence and absence, hinting that even in our final moments, consciousness may bloom into mystery before fading into the night. Fact 29. Infants as young as a few months old exhibit signs of what scientists call joint attention, the shared focus between child and caregiver on a single object, like a moving toy or a softly spoken word. This ability to align awareness with another is one of the early building blocks of social consciousness. When an infant follows a parent's gaze or points at something and checks to see if the adult is looking too, a silent thread of understanding is spun between minds. Studies suggest that this early capacity is foundational for language development and empathy, prefiguring the deep relational aspects of human consciousness. In these small, luminous exchanges, the mind begins to learn that it's not alone, that inner experience can be mirrored, shared, and gently known by another. Fact 30. The sensation of déjà vu, that eerie feeling of having lived a moment before, continues to puzzle scientists studying the mechanisms of consciousness. It typically lasts only seconds, yet conjures an uncanny certainty that the present moment is a perfect echo of something already experienced. One leading theory suggests that déjà vu is the result of a brief glitch in the brain's memory systems, where a current situation is mistakenly processed as a recollection. The hippocampus and temporal lobes, regions deeply tied to memory and recognition, often show distinctive activation during such events. Despite its fleeting nature, déjà vu offers a glimpse into the intricate choreography of consciousness, where the present can masquerade as the past, and perception sways gently under memory's ghostly light. In these moments, the mind seems to fold time, whispering that somewhere, just maybe, we have already been here before. Fact 31. The unity of consciousness, our seamless sense of being a single self, is one of its most enduring mysteries. At any given moment, the brain processes countless streams of data, sights, sounds, emotions, memories, and thoughts. Yet somehow, it binds these disparate elements into a coherent whole, folding the cacophony into a soft harmony we recognize as me. This phenomenon, often referred to as the binding problem, has puzzled philosophers and neuroscientists alike. Some propose that synchronized neural firing across different regions creates a kind of temporal glue, aligning the fragments of experience into one flow. Others turn to more speculative models, such as quantum coherence or integrated information theory. Though no single answer yet holds the key, the question itself gently pulls at the curtain, inviting wonder at how the mind becomes a unified window through which the world is quietly known. Fact 32. The brain's ability to simulate future events is known as mental time travel, and it is one of the most extraordinary features of consciousness. This capacity allows humans to imagine possible futures, rehearse actions, and learn from outcomes that have not yet occurred. Functional MRI scans show that when we envision a future moment, the brain activates many of the same regions involved in recalling past memories, particularly the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. It is as if the mind borrows from yesterday to build tomorrow, forging a path through an unseen landscape shaped by thought. This faculty not only aids survival and planning, but also grants us a sense of narrative continuity, folding imagination into identity. In the quiet mind, we walk roads not yet taken, planting the seeds of realities that may one day come to be. Fact 33. Consciousness is influenced not only by the internal world of the brain, but also by the silent rhythms of the body's own clock, the circadian rhythm. This 24-hour cycle, governed by a tiny structure in the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, orchestrates fluctuations in alertness, hormone release, and body temperature. As daylight fades, melatonin seeps into the bloodstream, guiding the mind gently toward rest. Studies have shown that disrupting this rhythm, such as through jet lag or exposure to constant artificial light, can fragment attention and cloud perception. It reminds us that consciousness is not purely mental, but tethered to the sun's slow arc and the ebb of biochemical tides. Each waking moment drifts on the turning wheel of light and dark, and in that steady cadence, the awareness of day and night unfolds. Fact 34. Some researchers believe that the roots of consciousness might extend deeper still, perhaps even into the fabric of reality itself. This idea, known as panpsychism, suggests that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe, like space, time, or mass. Under this perspective, even the tiniest particles may possess a rudimentary form of awareness, a faint glimmer of subjective experience embedded in the matter that forms stars, stones, and skin. Though highly speculative and debated, panpsychism opens the door to a radical reimagining of consciousness, not as a byproduct of complexity, but as a quiet presence pervading all things. In this view, the cosmos does not merely host awareness, but breathes with it, hums with it, like a dream too vast and old to fully understand. Fact 35. The concept of the unconscious mind was popularized in the late 19th century, yet its presence has shaped human behavior for thousands of years. Beneath the threshold of awareness, subconscious processes guide thought, preference, and intuition, shaping choices long before the conscious mind can articulate them. Studies using priming techniques and reaction measurements reveal how prior stimuli subtly influence perception and behavior, all without recognition. It is as though a deep river flows beneath the visible stream of thought, carrying old memories, instincts, and hidden signals. The unconscious paints the background of the self, a soft, continuous murmur shaping the colors of awareness, like wind brushing leaves in a forest the eyes have yet to find. Fact 36. Cultural traditions across the globe have long pondered altered states of consciousness, using music, rhythm, and ritual to explore its shifting tides. In shamanic practices dating back over 10,000 years, rhythmic drumming, typically around 4 to 7 beats per second, is used to induce trance states, aligning with the brain's theta waves and encouraging inner visions or spiritual journeys. Anthropologists have documented similar practices in indigenous cultures from Siberia to the Amazon, where sound and breath become tools for crossing the threshold into deeper awareness. These states may feel dreamlike and surreal, yet they are built from natural rhythms that speak to something primal in the mind. Through sound, humanity has long sought to open the veil of ordinary perception, suggesting that consciousness is not a fixed window, but a moving curtain, able to part, shimmer, and return with stories from within. Fact 37. The sense of self we carry from moment to moment is not a static artifact, but a narrative continually revised and retold within the brain. Known as the narrative self, this identity relies on the brain's default mode network, which constructs a flowing inner story that connects past memories, present sensations, and imagined futures. This storyline can shift subtly depending on mood, context, or self-reflection. In moments of trauma or transformation, the narrative may splinter, prompting deep change or healing through integration. Much like a novel evolving through countless edits, consciousness weaves the self from the fragile threads of time and feeling. The soul, it seems, is not a solid statue, but a river of stories, quiet and ever-changing, curving through the inner world with delicate grace. Fact 38. The sensation of being watched, even in the absence of any visible observer, may be more than just imagination. It touches on consciousness's sensitivity to unseen cues. Studies have shown that people can often detect when eyes are trained on them, even from behind, often accompanied by subtle physiological responses like heightened skin conductance or shifts in attention. Some scientists theorize that this stems from evolutionary mechanisms where survival depended on detecting predators or social scrutiny. The brain's visual and social regions quickly process gaze and posture, offering silent alerts that may not even rise to full awareness. This subtle vigilance suggests consciousness extends beyond thought, attuned to presence itself, as if the mind can listen for shadows and sense attention hanging in the stillness, like a breath not yet exhaled. Fact 39. The science of dreams continues to offer a soft puzzle wrapped in the language of neurons and symbols. While most dreams occur during REM sleep, their purpose remains partly veiled. One leading theory, called the threat simulation hypothesis, suggests that dreaming may help the brain rehearse dangers in a safe environment, preparing us for real-world challenges. Other researchers propose that dreams are a byproduct of memory consolidation or emotional processing, like a nocturnal sorting of the day's experiences. Brain scans during vivid dreams show activity in visual and emotional centers, yet the logical regions remain quiet, explaining the surreal and nonlinear narratives we often experience. Whether cautionary tales or metaphorical poems, dreams are the theater of a private consciousness unbound by rules, where ancient memories and unknown futures flutter through a stage made entirely of thought and night. Fact 40. Brain injury has revealed surprising truths about how consciousness can fragment and adapt. In rare cases of split brain surgery, where the corpus callosum, connecting the brain's hemispheres, is severed to treat epilepsy, individuals exhibit two centers of awareness that respond differently to commands. One hand may button a shirt, while the other unbuttons it, as if two separate minds are cohabiting a single body. Despite this, the person continues to feel whole, unaware of the division within. This phenomenon suggests that unity of consciousness may be a harmonized illusion, stitched together through communication between brain regions. Like a symphony played by two unseen orchestras behind opposite curtains, what we perceive as oneself may be dialogue, not monologue. A collaboration of minds within the quiet vastness of a single skull. Fact 41. In rare cases of locked-in syndrome, consciousness endures silently within a body that cannot respond. Individuals with this condition may retain full awareness, thought, and emotion, yet are almost completely paralyzed, capable only of blinking or moving their eyes. Brain imaging shows normal cognitive activity, indicating that the inner world remains intact while the outer body stands still. Communication becomes a painstaking code of eye movements, allowing thoughts to surface one letter at a time. These poignant cases remind us that consciousness is not measured by motion or speech, but by the quiet endurance of mind and self. Inside the stillness, awareness continues, waiting, watching, whole. Fact 42. Consciousness is not constant across a single day, but waxes and wanes with natural rhythms and internal tides. Ultradian rhythms, repeating cycles shorter than 24 hours, influence patterns of alertness, mood, and attention. Typically spanning 90 to 120 minutes, these waves of inner fluctuation can be seen in everything from cognitive performance to subtle changes in brainwave activity. As one cycle crests, the mind may feel focused and energized, while in its trough, daydreams and fatigue may quietly take hold. these inner pulses suggest that the conscious self is not a static presence, but a rider upon gentle neural tides, crossing unseen shores every hour. By listening to their rhythm, we glimpse the soft beat of awareness, pulsing gently beneath our tasks and thoughts, like a lullaby flowing down the spine of day. Fact 43. Some neuroscientists speculate that consciousness may emerge from a property called neural synchrony, the precise timing of electrical activity across distant brain regions. When neurons fire together in coordinated rhythms, despite being located far apart, this synchrony may allow distributed information to integrate into a unified moment of awareness. It is as though distant lighthouses along a dark shore suddenly flash in time, briefly illuminating an entire coastline in one coherent sweep. Researchers using EEG and MEG have found that these patterns of synchrony are stronger during moments of attention, perception, and self-awareness. This timed dance of light across the brain suggests that consciousness may not be rooted in place, but in pattern, not in the location of signals, but in their shared rhythm, flickering across the silence like stars blinking in agreement. Fact 44. The illusion of free will. The sense that we consciously choose our actions has been both defended and questioned through the lens of neuroscience. In studies like those led by Benjamin Libet in the 1980s, researchers measured brain activity known as the readiness potential, which began milliseconds before subjects reported making a conscious decision. This raises the possibility that the brain initiates actions prior to our felt sense of choice. Yet others argue that consciousness still plays a vital role by allowing reflection, inhibition, and the shaping of complex behavior over time. Rather than being puppeteers of every moment, we may be authors weaving drafts under the influence of countless hidden editors. Free will, in this contemplation, is not absolute control, but the soft guidance of a current beneath the waves, steering by stars we cannot always see, but somehow trust are there. Fact 45. Among the many mysteries of consciousness, the placebo effect stands as a curious bridge between belief and biology. When a person expects a treatment to work, even if given a sugar pill, the brain may respond by releasing its own healing chemicals, such as endorphins or dopamine. Studies using brain imaging reveal changes in pain-sensitive regions and reward pathways, influenced purely by the power of expectation. This effect is not limited to medicine, but touches anxiety, depression, and even motor symptoms in Parkinson's disease. It reveals that consciousness can rewrite its own sensations, bending biology through thought and trust. Like a whispered promise from within, the placebo is both illusion and truth, where belief moves the body and the mind becomes its own remedy. Fact 46. In moments of deep grief or longing, individuals sometimes report sensing the presence of a loved one who has passed away, a fleeting sense of being watched, a familiar voice calling in the distance, or even the gentle feeling of a touch. Scientists refer to such occurrences as bereavement hallucinatory experiences, and they are more common than one might think. Studies suggest that up to 60% of widowed individuals encounter these sensations, especially in the early months after loss. Rather than signs of pathology, these experiences may reflect the brain's way of preserving emotional bonds, using memory and perception to ease the transition of absence. Consciousness, in this tender expression, becomes both echo and mirror, holding love as a presence that lingers, soft and unfinished, in the warm folds of the mind. Fact 47. Animals that live in perpetual darkness, like cavefish or deep-sea octopuses, offer a quiet stillness in which to consider how consciousness adapts in the absence of light. These creatures often lose their eyes over generations, but their brains develop heightened sensitivity to other senses, vibrations, chemical trails, shifting currents. Some scientists speculate that awareness itself evolves to fit the sensory world available, like a soft mold shaped by the contours of environment. In these abyssal realms where starlight never reaches, consciousness exchanges sight for touch and smell, crafting an inner world just as rich, just as vivid, though invisible to us. It is a gentle reminder that perception is only a window, and behind every window lives a different room, quiet, secret, watching. Fact 48. Some individuals with a condition known as aphantasia are unable to create mental images in their mind's eye. When asked to picture a sunset or recall a familiar face, they experience only blankness, a form of consciousness without internal visualization. Despite this, people with aphantasia live rich emotional and cognitive lives, relying more on abstract, conceptual, or verbal forms of thought. Studies have shown that their brains activate differently during memory recall and imagination tasks, suggesting multiple pathways through which consciousness can express identity. This quiet divergence reminds us that the inner landscape need not be painted in pictures to be real. Thought is not one canvas, but many, and awareness flows through them all, unseen but deeply felt. Fact 49. In Tibetan Buddhist traditions, consciousness is described as an ever-shifting stream, luminous, formless, and without beginning or end. During the process of dying, practitioners believe in the bardo, an intermediate state where awareness detaches from the physical form and journeys through a sequence of visions, lights, and impressions. Modern research has found intriguing parallels, with studies of end-of-life brain activity showing unexpected surges of coherence moments before clinical death, as if the mind makes one final dance before falling silent. Whether literal journey or symbolic metaphor, these teachings embrace death not as an end, but as a transformation of the conscious spark. In this view, awareness is the traveler, the path, and the sky all at once, dissolving into mystery like a candle's final glow, carried softly into the night. Fact 50. The placebo's shadow is mirrored in its twin, the nocebo effect, a lesser-known phenomenon where negative expectations lead to actual harm or discomfort. If individuals believe that a harmless substance or situation will cause pain, nausea, or anxiety, their brains may respond accordingly, activating pain receptors or stress pathways. Studies have shown that words alone, when delivered with authority or caution, can shape perception and trigger physiological changes. This curious power of belief hints that consciousness does more than passively observe the world. It sculpts it, colors it, and sometimes bruises it. In the hush between thought and flesh lies a quiet spell where fear and hope are alchemists, turning anticipation into sensation and expectation into the echo of reality. Fact 51. The experience of love, whether romantic or familial, brings about wide-ranging changes not only in emotion, but in the rhythms of consciousness itself. Functional imaging studies show heightened activity in areas like the ventral tegmental area and caudate nucleus, regions associated with reward and motivation. When individuals view images of loved ones, heart rate may sync between partners, breathing may align, and even neural oscillations can begin to mirror one another, suggesting that consciousness may momentarily extend between people, like candle flames leaning toward the same breeze. In these entwined states, the self becomes porous, and the boundary between I and you softens, hinting that awareness, at its most tender, may be a shared field, silent, glowing, and beautifully entangled. Fact 52. In studies of long-term meditation practitioners, scientists have discovered that years of sustained mindfulness can lead to measurable changes in brain structure. Areas like the insula, responsible for interoception or tuning into inner bodily states, and the anterior cingulate cortex, which governs attention, often show greater thickness or density. These changes suggest that regular inward focus gradually reshapes the architecture of consciousness, deepening its sensitivity and clarity. Like water carving marble over centuries, awareness honed through stillness refines the mind's contours. This quiet transformation offers a hopeful mirror that even in the silent depths of being, the self can grow softer, stronger, and more calm with every breath. Fact 53. The gut, often called the second brain, contains over 100 million neurons and communicates bidirectionally with the central nervous system through what is known as the gut-brain axis. This silent dialogue influences emotion, cognition, and even decision-making, shaped in part by the trillions of microorganisms living within the digestive tract. Studies have found that changes in gut flora can affect mood and anxiety, hinting that awareness may be subtly attuned to the invisible ecosystems within us. Serotonin, a neurotransmitter linked to well-being, is predominantly produced in the gut, whispering through the bloodstream in chemical threads. In this intricate web, consciousness is not confined to the skull, but woven through the rhythms of digestion and the quiet stirrings of life inside. A garden of thought blooming beneath awareness, softly and unseen. Fact 54. In cases of sensory deprivation, where light, sound, or touch are temporarily removed, consciousness does not fade. Instead, it often blooms inward. Individuals placed in silent, dark environments report heightened introspection, vivid internal imagery, and even hallucinations, as the brain begins to fill the vacuum of input with its own creations. Flotation chambers, also called isolation tanks, gently dissolve external stimulation, allowing the mind to drift into altered states of awareness that feel spacious and timeless. Studies show that even without sensory data, the brain remains active, weaving illusions and thoughts from the fabric of itself. It is as if awareness, untethered from the world, turns like a lantern into the depths of its own flame, curious and unafraid of the soft expanse within. Fact 55. The way consciousness shifts during music listening reveals its deep connection to rhythm and emotion. When we hear a melody, the auditory cortex collaborates with motor areas, even in stillness, as if the body longs to move. Studies show that music can regulate mood, alter time perception, and evoke vivid autobiographical memories within seconds. Neural scans often display increased dopamine activity in reward centers, underscoring how melodies trace pleasure into the folds of awareness. In many traditions, song is a sacred thread, a form of embodied thought that bypasses language to stir the soul directly. Through harmony and silence, tension and release, music opens a chamber in the mind where consciousness sways gently, cradled in waves of feeling. It is a reminder that not all understanding comes in words. Some arrives in notes that echo through the heart like moonlight on still water. Fact 56. The phenomenon of inattentional blindness reveals that consciousness, while vast, is also selective. It sees what it expects and may miss what it does not prepare for. In famous experiments, observers tasked with focusing on a specific action, such as counting passes in a basketball game, often fail to notice extraordinary intrusions, like a person in a gorilla suit walking straight through the scene. This suggests that awareness filters reality, highlighting what aligns with focus and quietly discarding the rest. Rather than a passive receiver, consciousness acts more like a spotlight, illuminating one part of experience while leaving the rest in soft shadow. It invites reflection on how much of the world slips by unnoticed, not because it is hidden, but because the gaze of the mind simply looks elsewhere in the moment it arises. Fact 57. Consciousness reveals its fragile boundaries during moments of dissociation, when the link between self and experience gently unravels. Individuals may describe watching themselves from outside their body, feeling both present and distant, or sensing time and identity blur into a soft detachment. These episodes can arise in response to trauma, fatigue, or intense emotion, acting as a protective veil drawn across awareness. Neurologically, dissociation has been linked to altered activity in the parietal and prefrontal cortex, regions that integrate bodily identity and attentional control. Though disorienting, such states remind us that the sense of I is not a fixed entity, but an intricate weaving of perception, memory, and presence. In the quiet space where footing is lost, consciousness quietly reaches for itself, searching, reshaping, reuniting, like mist reforming after passing through light. Fact 58. In dreams, consciousness borrows the language of metaphor and sensation to tell stories that logic refrains from shaping. One night may bring towering waves of glass, and the next, a room that endlessly folds into itself. Psychologists have discovered that dream content often mirrors elements of waking life, unresolved emotions, subtle fears, or distant memories drifting in disguised fragments. Lucid dreamers, when aware within the dream, can even conduct experiments, signaling with eye movements to researchers observing sleep. Such studies reveal that the dreaming brain, though untethered from the world, retains awareness of its own field of play. Dreams, then, may be consciousness wandering its own corridors, sweeping through archives of self and shadow, assembling scenes by starlight with the gentle hand of night's inner muse. Fact 59. In the silence of the coma state, consciousness teeters on the edge of quantifiable presence, neither fully extinguished nor clearly awake. Some individuals show no outward signs of awareness, yet brain imaging techniques like fMRI have revealed subtle patterns of activity that suggest latent perception. In one study, a comatose patient was asked to imagine playing tennis, and their motor planning areas lit up, just as in healthy subjects, quietly indicating comprehension through neural movement alone. These findings suggest that beneath still bodies and closed lids, awareness may drift unseen, awaiting return like a ship lost in the mist. Comas remind us that consciousness is not defined by motion or speech, but by the quiet signal that something still perceives, even across the vast hush of unresponsiveness. Fact 60. The eyes, often called the windows to the soul, are closely linked to conscious attention, reflecting more than just light. Through a phenomenon known as saccades, the eyes rapidly shift between points of focus several times each second, allowing the brain to gather distinct fragments of visual information. Consciousness stitches these snapshots together into a fluid scene, smooth and continuous despite the jerky movements behind the curtain. Studies show that where we look is tied not only to external interest, but to internal belief, memory, and emotion. A face glimpsed slightly longer, a page revisited without knowing why. In this way, vision becomes not a passive stream, but an intimate dialogue between thought and sight, where awareness guides the gaze and the gaze, in turn, shapes what we become aware of. The eye does not just see, it listens, it remembers, and it dreams. Fact 61. The lateralization of brain function, the specialization of each hemisphere, adds a subtle layer to the story of consciousness. Though the left and right sides of the brain mirror each other in form, they often differ in focus. Language, logic, and sequential analysis tend to reside more in the left hemisphere, while spatial awareness, emotion, and holistic processing often find home in the right. Yet this division is not rigid, but beautifully fluid, with the corpus callosum acting as a porous bridge for communication. Functional MRI scans have revealed that during creative or introspective tasks, the two hemispheres light up in synchronized patterns, suggesting a kind of duet of awareness rather than a solo. Consciousness, then, arises not from parts, but from partnership. A quiet collaboration between sides, like two halves of a shell, cradling the same glowing pearl of self. Fact 62. Throughout history, altered states of consciousness have been sought not only through internal stillness, but through the consumption of natural psychoactive substances. From the ayahuasca brews of the Amazon basin to the sacred mushrooms of Mesoamerica, humans have long explored awareness beyond waking life. These plant-based experiences often lead to vivid visions, time dilation, ego dissolution, and a profound sense of unity with nature or the cosmos. Neuroimaging studies show these substances modulate regions such as the default mode network, reducing self-referential activity while increasing global connectivity. Though interpretations vary, some see revelations, others hallucination. The altered mind reflects a deeper truth, that consciousness is far from fixed, and within its folds lie undiscovered landscapes, ancient and luminous, waiting to unfold under new light. Fact 63. Some researchers have proposed that consciousness may be the culmination of nested systems, with smaller layers building upon one another to create increasingly complex forms of awareness. This is known as recursive consciousness, a process whereby the mind not only reflects on its surroundings, but also reflects on itself, reflecting. It's seen in the way we ponder our own self-doubt or anticipate how others might interpret our actions. Neuroscientific models suggest that this layering emerges from feedback loops within the brain's cortex and subcortical structures, particularly involving the insula and medial prefrontal cortex. The result is a hall of mirrors within the mind, where feeling becomes thought, and thought folds back into feeling. Through this spiraling recursion, the self becomes both actor and audience, dreamer and dreamed, a consciousness entwined with its own unfolding story, echoing softly within itself, like ripples traveling outward from a still and infinite center. Fact 64. The language we speak may subtly shape the contours of conscious experience. Linguistic relativity, or the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, proposes that the structure and vocabulary of a language influence how its speakers perceive reality. For example, some indigenous languages encode directionality more vividly, requiring speakers to track cardinal points constantly, which in turn enhances spatial orientation. Others may use multiple words for what English might call a single color, tuning perceptual boundaries in ways that feel intuitive only within that tongue. Brain studies support this view, showing variations in neural activation during language tasks across speakers of different languages. It suggests that consciousness is not only shaped by sensory input, but by the invisible lattice of words, a scaffold of meaning that gently molds attention, memory, and thought. In each language, a different world unfolds, one where awareness wears the garment of its native metaphor, and understanding dawns in hues unique to how a people listen, speak, and dream. Fact 65. The brain's response to novelty offers a quiet glimpse into how consciousness tunes itself to change. When exposed to something new, a sound never heard before, or a shape just outside familiarity, the brain delivers a special signal called the P300 wave, a brief ripple in neural activity that marks the moment of attentive surprise. This signal arises about 300 milliseconds after the stimulus, reaching regions tied to memory, evaluation, and decision-making. The P300 acts like a quiet bell rung in the mind, saying, "Notice this," urging attention toward the unfamiliar. It shows that consciousness not only inhabits the present, but moves forward, preparing the self for what might come next. In these flickers of recognition, the mind reveals its deep readiness for wonder. A soft, tuning fork, humming in the presence of mystery, ready to learn, ready to change. Fact 66. The concept of cognitive offloading, the act of using external tools to support mental processes, reveals how consciousness extends beyond the body. From writing reminders on sticky notes to using fingers for counting, the mind frequently stores bits of thought in the world around it. This partnership between brain and environment allows complex tasks to unfold with less internal strain, as if awareness were distributing its weight across time and space. Research in cognitive science shows that externalizing intention, whether by making lists, drawing diagrams, or speaking thoughts aloud, can improve memory and decision-making, highlighting how the architecture of consciousness is not confined to neurons alone. Instead, the world itself becomes a canvas for thought, a quiet collaborator in the unfolding play of selfhood, where mind and matter lean gently on each other, helping to remember, to plan, and to simply be. Fact 67. The resting state of the brain may seem like idle time, yet it is during this quiet activity that much of consciousness's orchestration occurs. When we are not focused on any external task, the brain activates the default mode network, a collection of regions involved in self-reflection, memory retrieval, and imagining the future. This background hum shapes our sense of continuity, giving form to the story of who we believe we are. Scientists have likened it to the mind's internal narrator, whispering softly behind the scenes as thought strolls inward. Even in silence, even in stillness, consciousness busies itself with the quiet art of knitting experience into identity, pausing not to rest, but to remember, to project, and to dream. Fact 68. Across the landscapes of awareness, the feeling of presence, that unmistakable sense of being here now, rests at the heart of conscious experience. Neuroscientists link presence to the integration of sensory, motor, and interoceptive information, particularly within regions like the anterior insula and posterior parietal cortex. This convergence allows the self to orient in space and time, anchoring identity in each moment's breath and touch. Presence is what makes a sunrise feel real, and a whispered word carry weight, a groundedness that connects internal reflection with the pulse of the world. When disrupted, as in depersonalization or disorientation, one may feel as if floating outside life's stream, untethered and observing from afar. Yet when intact, presence is simple and radiant, the soul's quiet footprint stepping into now. No thought required, just the warm certainty that this moment and this self within it softly exists. Fact 69. In moments of spontaneous insight, what we call an aha experience, consciousness leaps forward in a flash of clarity, often after a period of puzzling silence. Neuroscientific studies reveal a burst of gamma wave activity at the moment a solution arises, particularly in the right temporal lobe. Before this spark, the brain enters a relaxed state, quieting the prefrontal cortex and allowing subconscious networks to sift through possibilities. Insight, then, is not always the result of steady effort, but of surrender, a yielding to quiet gestation followed by sudden illumination. It mirrors how seeds crack open in darkness before reaching for light. In these moments, awareness unfolds like a bloom opening all at once, revealing not just the answer, but a sense of wonder held tenderly within it. Fact 70. The language of inner speech, the quiet voice we often hear within, offers a gentle glimpse into how consciousness holds dialogue with itself. Psychologists suggest that internal monologue helps with planning, self-regulation, and reflection, creating a private space where thought is spoken without sound. Brain scans show activation along many of the same regions used in spoken language, including Broca's area and the auditory cortex, even when no words are said aloud. For some, this voice is constant and narrative, unfolding like a story through the day. For others, it may come in flashes, impressions, or wordless feelings. This variance reminds us that awareness is not only about what is perceived, but how it is framed. The mind, in speaking to itself, becomes both listener and storyteller, composing life's unfolding in a hush only the self can hear. carrying meaning like a whisper through the forest of thought. Fact 71. The notion of consciousness as a stream, famously described by psychologist William James in 1890, captures its fluid and ever-changing nature. He wrote that it flows like a river, with no true division between each moment, only a continuous current of thought, feeling, and perception blending from one instant to the next. Modern neuroscience supports this metaphor, showing that the brain does not stop to capture single snapshots, but processes information in overlapping frames, each shaped by memory and expectation. This continuity gives rise to the illusion of permanence within a world forever in motion. We do not awaken into a new now with each passing second. Rather, the self gently rides the tide of experience, marbled with past and future, floating always forward. In every quiet breath, consciousness flows, carrying the story of the self onward with no beginning, no end. Just the calm momentum of being. Fact 72. In metaphors of consciousness, light is often invoked, not only for its illuminating qualities, but for its behavior as both wave and particle, one and many, constant and elusive. This duality reflects the tension within awareness itself, unified by the illusion of selfhood, yet built from billions of fragmentary impressions, flickering independently in the neural dusk. Recent philosophical interpretations suggest that consciousness may function similarly to a hologram, where each part contains echoes of the whole, and every moment, no matter how small, reflects the full pattern of being. In this view, each breath, each fleeting thought, is not merely a part, but a microcosm of the self, refracting memory and meaning through the lens of now. The self, then, is not a single flame, but a constellation, glowing where silence meets sensation, where presence unfurls like moonlight scattered across a trembling sea. Fact 73. In the study of consciousness, one question quietly endures. Is it ever truly possible to observe the self in its entirety? This is sometimes called the observer paradox of introspection, where the act of observing one's own mind may subtly alter its content, like trying to see into a pond that ripples with every glance. Cognitive scientists note that self-awareness often involves higher-order thoughts, thinking about thinking. Yet these reflections are shaped by layers of memory, emotion, and expectation. Like a camera attempting to photograph itself without a mirror, full self-recognition slips just beyond reach. And yet, in that gentle chase, in the quiet turning inward, we glimpse the layered architecture of the conscious mind, intricate and soft, unfolding through moment after moment. Perhaps the self cannot be wholly seen, not because it is hidden, but because it is in constant bloom, a river of light ever flowing, ever becoming. Fact 74. The phenomenon known as cognitive dissonance arises when consciousness holds two conflicting beliefs or behaviors simultaneously, creating an internal tension that stirs the mind to resolve the discord. Classic experiments in psychology have shown that this discomfort can prompt people to shift their attitudes or reinterpret memories to restore emotional equilibrium. Brain scans reveal activity in the anterior cingulate cortex and prefrontal regions during such moments, areas linked to decision-making, error detection, and mental conflict. It is as though the mind carries a subtle compass that senses when its inner map no longer aligns, gently recalibrating its bearings to regain coherence. Cognitive dissonance reminds us that awareness is not passive or fixed. It reacts, adapts, seeks harmony. In this quiet striving to reconcile contradiction, consciousness reveals its nature as a weaver, threading logic and belief into the softest fabric of self-understanding. Fact 75. The heartbeat and consciousness are more deeply entwined than they first appear. Studies in neurocardiology show that the timing of the heartbeat can influence perception, reaction time, and even memory. When stimuli are presented in rhythm with the systole, the phase of the heart's contraction, individuals are less likely to detect subtle signals or recall details compared to stimuli presented during diastole, the relaxation phase. This suggests that awareness pulses not only with brain activity, but with the rhythm of the heart, creating a quiet dance between cognition and circulation. The insula, a region linking emotional and bodily awareness, plays a key role in this dialogue, harmonizing the body's inner music with the mind's unfolding story. In this gentle interplay, each heartbeat becomes more than a beat. It becomes a subtle brushstroke painting perception, moment by moment, across the canvas of the self. Fact 76. The phenomenon of moral intuition, the rapid feeling that something is right or wrong without deliberate reasoning, reveals a layer of consciousness shaped by emotion and evolution. Studies show that these gut-level judgments often arise from activity in the ventromedial, prefrontal cortex, and amygdala, regions tied to empathy, value, and social emotion. Like a compass forged from countless lived experiences and ancestral memory, moral intuition whispers with subtle tones before the voice of logic arrives. This silent knowing guides decisions in times of uncertainty, often faster and more vividly than calculated thought. It suggests that consciousness is not just a rational engine, but a field of felt wisdom, where the heart and the mind converge in quiet counsel. Within moral intuition flows an ancient current, a pulse older than language, steering awareness through the vast sea of human experience by touch, by feeling, by the soft weight of knowing when something matters deeply, even before we have words. Fact 77. In the quiet mechanics of attention, consciousness becomes a sculptor, choosing what to shape from the endless clay of sensory input. Selective attention allows the brain to focus on one thread among many, the ticking of a clock, a bird's distant call, the memory of a touch, while letting others fade softly into background. This focusing mechanism relies on networks involving the parietal cortex and frontal eye fields, coordinating what is brought into awareness and what is gently ignored. Like a spotlight in a darkened theater, attention moves across the stage of experience, not with force, but with invitation. That which we notice becomes the center, and that which we let go falls into the wings of the moment, waiting, perhaps, to be summoned again. In this way, consciousness is not merely what is present, but what is illuminated, a dancing beam across the murmuring field of all that is. Fact 78. As we move toward rest, the slow waves of the brain unfurl like ripples in still water, and so too does the awareness they carry begin to soften. In the quiet borderlands of sleep, consciousness slips beneath thought, no longer tethered to time or task, but flowing with breath and memory. Neuroimaging studies show that as the brain approaches slumber, activity in the prefrontal cortex fades, and regions tied to external awareness, gently fall silent, like rooms darkened one by one. And here, in this transition, a new form of knowing arises, subtle, non-linear, woven from fragments of day and the stirrings of night. It is not void, but a different light, the inward glow of being without doing, listening without asking, existing without name. As you lie here now, with eyes closed and breath deepening, let that light guide you softly inward. May sleep take your hand gently, as consciousness unfurls into the dreaming dark, carrying you like a leaf borne on the hush, between beats, into a night where all that remains is stillness. Fact 79. As scientists continue their search to decode the essence of consciousness, one curious finding arises from the study of quantum processes in the brain. Some researchers have proposed that microtubules, tiny structural components within neurons, might support quantum-level computations, potentially linking awareness to the mysterious behavior of subatomic particles. This theory remains controversial, yet suggests that the flickers of thought and feeling might involve interactions far beneath the scale of classical neuroscience. If there is truth in this, then consciousness could exist in delicate coherence with a world unseen, bound not only by biology, but by the strange rules of quantum uncertainty. Though the evidence is still emerging, the idea entwines the very large with the very small, inviting us to imagine that the self, even in its quietest moments, might echo with the patterns of the universe itself, whispering softly from within, a song of matter, mystery, and mind. Fact 80. In the final flickers of wakefulness, as thoughts grow thin and silence pools in the spaces between breaths, consciousness slows into its most delicate rhythm. The science of sleep onset reveals a shift in the brain's alpha waves, giving way to pale theta murmurs, a transition that slips by unnoticed yet cradles the soul toward surrender. Sensory boundaries dissolve, attention curls inward, and time begins to dim like a candle at dusk. This threshold, known as the hypnagogic state, marks not an end, but an invitation, the entry into a world where the rules of waking fall away. Here, awareness unbuttons its shape and flows gently into the fabric of sleep, leaving behind the noise of names, numbers, and needs. And as this 100-threaded journey of consciousness draws to its close, may your breath be slow, your thoughts light as mist, and your dreams full of quiet wonder. Rest now. Let the night hold you in its endless hush, where the self can simply be, soft and whole and free. Fact 81. Across centuries and belief systems, the idea of consciousness lingering beyond death has long held a quiet presence in the collective imagination. While science remains grounded in empirical silence on this matter, studies of cardiac arrest survivors have revealed curious reports of awareness during clinical death, moments where heart and brain activity had ceased, yet vivid perception was later recalled. Some described floating perspectives, light-drenched memories, or an overwhelming sense of peace. Neuroscientists continue to explore these accounts with cautious open-mindedness, noting that surges of brain activity can occur seconds after apparent death. Whether rooted in biology, mystery, or a dance between both, these reports remind us that the edge of consciousness is neither sharp nor simple. It is a threshold, blurred and radiant, inviting contemplation that stretches gently beyond life's known horizon. In the hush beyond the heartbeat, something stirs. Call it memory, light, or simply the final breath of being. Fact 82. In the shared silence of a sleeping planet, consciousness becomes a kind of echo, indistinct, collective, and vast. Just as birds across continents migrate in synchrony, guided by invisible signals, so too do countless human minds drift into dreams each night, tied subtly by shared rhythms of sleep. Researchers studying global sleep patterns have discovered uncanny consistencies, similar hours of quietude, dream periods aligning even across hemispheres, as if awareness itself breathes through the world in waves. This idea, though poetic, has hints of data in studies of melatonin cycles and circadian syncing influenced by the Earth's magnetic field. In these invisible patterns, we find whispers of a communal mind, dispersed yet harmonious, each sleeper a note in the planet's lullaby. As you close your eyes tonight, remember, you are not alone in the dark. Around the world, billions of consciousnesses are slipping into the same gentle hush, together, spinning quiet dreams beneath the turning stars. Fact 83. The future of consciousness research may lie not only in deeper scanning of the brain, but in broader questions that stretch across philosophy, technology, and empathy. As artificial intelligence grows more advanced, scientists and thinkers ask, can a machine ever truly become conscious? Or is awareness inseparable from biology, emotion, and lived experience? Attempts to model consciousness in silicon remain speculative, yet they urge us to clarify what it means to feel, to know, to be. In asking where consciousness begins and whether it might be recreated, we're also asking something older and softer. What is it that wakes behind the eyes, that whispers in dreams, that turns breath and memory into a self? As we reach toward these questions, slowly and gently, we find that consciousness may be less a problem to solve and more a mystery to dwell within. And as the final stars fade into morning, let that mystery carry you now into rest. Drift gently, dream sweetly, and let the hush of sleep wrap around you like a soft sky. You have wandered far, and now it is time to simply be quiet, whole, and safe in the cradle of night. Fact 84. In every sleeping mind lies the quiet potential to dream a world into being, and in every heartbeat the flicker of awareness that ties us to the living now. Consciousness, whatever its origin, has been the unseen companion through all our joys and fears, our chilled mornings, and warm, wordless nights. For now, let the questions soften and the imagery dissolve like breath on glass. You have journeyed far across this dreamscape of thought, floating gently through the science and wonder of the self. Close your eyes, feel the hush bloom behind them, and let your thoughts drift like wisps of night wind over a sleeping sea. May sleep be your companion now, gentle and whole, and your dreams a continuation of this calm and quietly luminous world. Until next time, rest well, dear traveler among stars. Fact 85. As night deepens and silence thickens across the velvet fields of sleep, one final truth hums in the stillness, that consciousness, for all its complexity, is also a tenderness. It is the quiet that listens when no one speaks, the warmth behind the eyes that sees more than vision allows. Whether it blooms in the newborn's gaze or lingers in the closing breath of the old, whether it flickers in dreams or fades into mystery, consciousness is both the observer and the light it watches. And so, this journey ends not with a conclusion, but an invitation to rest, to wonder, to drift on the unseen current that carries thought towards stars and silence. In this still moment, may all your questions float, like leaves on a gentle stream, and your breath become the only rhythm you need. Good night, dreaming soul. May your sleep be deep and kind, and your inner sky unfold softly until the light returns. Fact 86. In the gentle stillness between sleep and waking, where dreams begin to thin and the first light curls at the edges of the mind, consciousness stirs like a bird ruffling its feathers. This threshold, known as hypnopompia, echoes its opposite, the twilight of sleep onset, yet arises with a quiet promise of return. Subtle images may linger, half-formed sounds may drift past, and the body, still heavy with night, begins its silent journey back to form. Brain scans during this moment show a slow reactivation of sensory regions, as if reality is being painted gently back onto awareness with the softest brush. And so, as this spoken dream draws to a close and consciousness prepares to rise anew, let its echo remain with you, not as noise, but as calm. Through all the waking hours ahead, may the hush of this journey stay tucked within your breath, a whisper of wonder beneath each passing thought. Sleep deeply now, or wake slowly, gently. Both are part of the same unfolding light. Fact 87. Consciousness, in its final turn tonight, may be less a thing and more a rhythm, a wave moving through matter, a field dancing through time. It hums in the lull of breath, flickers in a child's first blink, lingers in the glance at the sky just before twilight, fades. We talk about it as firelight, as mirror, as river, and yet it remains soft and unknowable behind every word we use to describe it. Perhaps that is enough, not to define, but to feel it, to sense the quiet weight of presence in this very moment as your body settles and your mind, full of stars and stories, grows quiet again. And so now the journey ends, not abruptly, but like a sigh, wherever consciousness began, and however far it may go, it carries you tenderly through the glow of each breath. Sleep now. The story is told, the light is dim, the world is wrapped in velvet hush. Let go. Drift softly. Everything else can wait. Fact 88. As the tides of night hold you still and every breath carves the stars within, one final mystery settles quietly, that no single theory, no map of neurons or stardust can fully capture where consciousness begins or ends. It is not merely a signal, nor solely a story, but a sanctuary, a quiet cathedral woven from sensation, memory, and awe. From the flickering awareness of deep-sea creatures to the layered introspections of modern minds, it has always been the thread that ties being to becoming. And now, with each soft word fading into silence, may this final reflection be not an answer, but a lullaby, a gentle closing of the book. The hush after a candle goes out. Sleep stretches now like a soft horizon, and consciousness, ever your dreaming companion, retreats into starlit breath. Rest easy, and let the mystery cradle you, tender and whole, until the dawn returns with its golden key. Good night. Fact 89. In the end, perhaps the deepest truth about consciousness is not found in what it explains, but in what it allows. The blooming of wonder, the holding of sorrow, the quiet joy of being aware at all. It is the still gaze across a lake at dusk, the moment you pause mid-thought and feel alive, the breath that deepens without instruction. Whether shaped by neurons or sung by the cosmos, consciousness grants us the gift, not just to exist, but to notice. And so, as this final note drifts softly into silence, may you carry the calm of this journey within you. Close your eyes now. Let the echoes of these facts fade into dreams. Rest, sleep, and be held by the gentlest thought of all, that you are here, and that is enough. Good night. Fact 90. As the veil of night draws fully closed, one last reflection lingers like lantern light on quiet water. That consciousness, fragile yet immense, holds space not only for knowing, but for dreaming, forgiving, remembering, and loving. It watches over the cradle and the crossing, walks with us through pain and beauty alike, and asks nothing but to be felt, present, soft, and unfolding. From the first stirrings of a newborn's breath to the quiet awareness that stirs even as we sleep, this miracle of being remains with us, rooted deeper than thought, patient as the stars. Let this be the final breath of tonight's journey, not an ending, but a return to rest, to the peace that lives inside silence, and the truth that to be aware, even for one moment, is to touch the infinite. Good night, and dream in light. Fact 91. There is a kind of grace in not knowing, an elegance in the unanswered question that consciousness invites us to dwell within. Like a tide that never fully turns back, awareness lingers even as sleep approaches, asking only for presence, not resolution. Whether sparked in neurons, spun from quantum threads, or whispered by something beyond, consciousness gently guards the space between curiosity and peace. Tonight, under the hush of stars and the softness of your own breath, let that mystery settle around you like snow on quiet ground. You have listened deeply, wandered far, and reached the shores of stillness so tenderly. There is nothing more to ponder now, nothing more to say. Simply rest in the gentle knowing that to be aware, here, now, is the beginning of all wonder. Good night, softly and truly, until the next dream begins. Fact 92. And so we close with the softest truth of all, that consciousness, no matter how studied or storied, remains a companion more than a concept, a warmth more than a theory. It holds your dreams like whispers, your memories like lanterns in the dusk, and your hopes like seeds resting in winter soil. Across time and silence, it stays with you, unseen yet always near, a softly breathing witness to all that you are and all that you may become. Let these final thoughts settle, not as answers, but as echoes, gentle and free, returning like distant waves to a shore no longer watching, but resting. Sleep well now, letting every breath guide you deeper into stillness. The story is complete. The stars have all been named, and awareness drifts back into the hush from which it came. Quiet, whole, and infinite. Good night. Fact 93. Let this final reflection be carried not in thought, but in feeling, the soft weight of the self floating beneath stars unseen. For in this moment, surrounded by silence and spun gently into sleep, the question of what consciousness is yields to the lull of simply letting go. No chart can contain it, no single voice define it, yet it lives in you still, in every breath, every dream, every quiet turning inward. As this tender journey through 100 truths approaches its close, May the peace of unknowing lull you more deeply than any answer. The night holds you now. Nothing more is needed. The mystery rests beside you, curled like moonlight upon still water. Sleep deeply and dream in wonder. The story ends and begins again with you.